And welcome to the Board of County Commissioners agenda setting and work session for February the 4th, 2020. We'll start with introductions. I'm John Hutchings, and this is
Ty Menser,
Gary Edwards,
Robin Courts,
and Ramiro Chavez,
Thomasina Cooper,
Labolita Beaumont,
and our backup.
Amy Johnson, Megan Porter.
Yeah, so thank you. Welcome. We're going to review the Board of County Commissioners agenda for this afternoon, 2 o'clock, and then the next week's agenda for February 11th. And the Board of Health agenda for February 11th as well, and then a host of other things. So we're going to start this morning with a homeless strategies update, and welcome Keely Marino.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Wow, this is live.
That's not me.
Keely Marino with Public Health and Social Services.
don't they have one of those?
Wow, it's very, very lively. Okay, great. Or else I'm going to start singing. So, not terribly too much to report in the last week besides...
That really is loud.
It's loud. Besides still working on the data entry deduplication process for the data from the point-in-time count census. We've gotten all of our forms back, including the 7-day count forms, and so we're working on that. And then also, I'm sure you're aware, there's been quite a bit of media coverage on the homeless response in, particularly in Olympia over the last week. So the Seattle Times has put together a podcast called The Outsiders. The first episode was launched last week, so that's received a lot of media attention. And then there was an article this weekend in the Seattle Times with, I think, a 2-page full color picture spread of what's going on in Olympia. So just kind of preparing for that, just questions around those articles, and the podcast is going to continue. It's an entire year that they're following, I believe, one person through their experience in Olympia with homelessness. So I know there's at least 5 episodes, if not more. But just keep that on your radar, give it a listen, and that's about it.
Wow, yes. Did you have something?
After you have the questions,
Okay.
I have a question.
Questions or comments?
On my drive to work today, it was snowing.
Mm-hmm.
So are we in like code blue or opening up?
No. The weather, the snow turns to rain, and then we're going to have moderate temperatures and rain for the next 10 years, I think was the prediction.
Remind me what the trigger point is.
So the trigger point would be at least 72 hours forecasted, up to 96 hours of freezing weather and snow, freezing weather and rain, high winds and snow. So just kind of a combination of those things lasting 72 hours and beyond.
Got it.
Yeah.
When you said 5 episodes of the podcast, and they've released 1, so there's 4 more coming?
No, I believe there's more than 5. I'm just aware that there's at least 5. So because it covers an entire year, I'm imagining there will be more than 5. I just got an email from the person who's putting it together saying that he's working on episode number 5.
But you did say the first episode just got...
Yes, it's released.
Okay, so this will be sort of rolling out over the next however...
Yes.
Okay, got it.
And it's called Outsiders.
The Outsiders. Mm-hmm.
The Outsiders, okay, thank you.
You sent me that, yeah.
Question, Commissioner?
I'm good, sir.
Okay. County Manager, do you have something?
Yeah, I have a question for Kelly. Yesterday, I had my monthly meeting with the city managers, and they were reporting they have been pulling out the funding to the Salvation Army, and it was related to shelters. As you may recall, Commissioners, you took a similar action late last year, where you took about $65,000 out of the Salvation Army allocation and give it to
Hazardous weather.
Hazardous weather.
Mm-hmm.
And it was because at that point of Salvation Army was going through a remodel, and they couldn't provide the shelter services. That was the reason why you shifted. Yesterday, I had a conversation that perhaps the Salvation Army is changing the model. They're moving away from providing shelters, and that's the reason why perhaps the city have taken those actions. I just want to hear if you have heard anything,
Sure.
anything related to that. Or...
I know that at this point, the only thing that Captain Mark at the Salvation Army has committed to is cold weather shelter, which is just this last season from November 1 through the end of April. I also know that he and his crew have contracted with an outside third party to do a survey, a community needs assessment, and they've had 3 listening sessions in the last 3 weeks to kind of get a gauge of where the community sees the Salvation Army's value and where they should move forward in the next couple years. So it's very likely that they'll be taking on some other, I know that they do rental assistance, I know that they have the toy distribution efforts in the wintertime. So I haven't heard definitively that they're moving away completely from shelter, but certainly from all year shelter.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
I have a question, Keith, and that's regarding a citizen in Yelm is interested in having having Yelm have a seat at the table of the RHC. And I didn't know if you've been in contact with Yelm regarding that. I don't know if they have any interest. I know the RHC is working on an interlocal agreement now. Don't know if
Right.
Yelm is interested or not, or even logistically if it makes sense. I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't personally been in contact with Yelm on the matter of the RHC. I know that Councilmember Cooper from City of Olympia had invited Yelm, and Yelm wasn't ready. They wanted to see where the RHC was going, as far as I recall. So it could be time for Yelm to come.
Was that some time ago that Councilman Cooper was in contact?
Yes, I believe that was in the summer of 2019.
Oh, quite some time, okay.
Yeah, August.
I'll reach out to them then. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's it?
Could I, actually,
Certainly.
that raised 2 more questions for me. RHC, last report was the retreat, right? Or in December? Can you kind of just give us a clue as to what's on this month's agenda? What's the next things that RHC is going to be addressing?
What I recall, and we haven't set the agenda, but from what I recall at the end of that retreat was we were going to revisit the mission. So I believe Jay Burney from the city manager or interim city manager for City of Olympia was going to be working on wordsmithing that mission statement, that we were going to look at some of the areas of focus and bring the interlocal agreement up to look at as a group. And so those are the 3 things I recall. One, I had some homework to look at expanding shelter.
Outstanding items. So the February meeting included all those items that Keely stated, as well as the conversation is going to be whether the HHSC group, and how the opportunity to combine the 2 groups will be. I think that's the focal point of the conversation as well.
There's a thought to combine the 2 groups?
Well, because the initial conversation during that workshop was, it seems to me that 2 groups, although they similar representatives form part of that group, they do just about the same. And the conversation is whether there's an opportunity to combine the 2 groups and all the efforts associated with it.
And the CIP, which is on its last legs, only because by virtue of the agreement, MOU, expiring and United Way going on their own, that Council Member Kathy from Tumwater and I met yesterday in our agenda setting for our upcoming meeting. And there's an appetite for the 2 combining as well. It's duplicative work. But that's yet to be determined at this point.
Yeah.
My concern about that would be just that there's sufficient capacity within the group. I mean, meeting once a month. I mean, I sat in for Hutch I know it was the most, probably the apex of the HHSC's work when they had to actually make the decisions and go through but I mean, that was time consuming. And I wouldn't have thought that group in that couple-month period would necessarily have the time or capacity to be working on some of the other homeless response strategy issues. I mean, maybe I don't sit in all the meetings. Maybe I'm wrong, but my concern would be overwhelming one group with too many things and then not enough gets done. But it's just my 2 cents. My other question was about the Salvation Army. So what I understood you to be suggesting is that they're going to have community listening sessions, and the expectation is the result of that is going to be that they should be doing something more important than providing shelter?
I'm not sure what the end results of those 3 listening sessions are. I know that they're exploring what are the strengths of the Salvation Army and what does the community think that the Salvation Army should do, and then a decision from there. So I know that the 3 listening sessions are over. I attended the first one, and I don't know what the next step is in the process yet. So it could be that they continue doing cold weather shelter. I'm not sure. But it could be that they don't.
Okay.
You ever sit down to a meal, you're so hungry, and you pile up your plate, and your eyes are bigger than your stomach? So when I say there's an appetite for the HHSC to combine, it could be that that's just too big of a bite.
Yeah.
But there's interest in discussing whether that's functional or not. Yeah, because it could be just way too much over the top.
Yeah, that was one of the exactly the same comments.
Yeah.
Is that really we're going to be piled so much into this group, perhaps we're going to lose the opportunity to be effective. But I think it's worth the conversation. Maybe if there's an opportunity to take the HHSC and do something different, I don't know. But some of those concerns were raised as well. Yeah.
The HHSC is combined or composed of electeds rather than electeds and a ton of staff as well on the RHC. So I'm not sure how it would work, but a deeper conversation. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have issues with the live streaming, Commissioner, so you know.
I don't. All right, that's fine. So bear with us if you heard that. Now we're going to move into the reviewing the BoCC draft agenda for this afternoon for February the 4th, and we'll call the meeting to order at 2 o'clock. Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Gary Edwards, and then approval of the agenda and the board meeting minutes from January 28th, and then an opportunity for the public to address the board. You aware of anything?
No.
Nope. Anything? No? Okay. And then the county manager's update.
Yes, I will provide an update, a follow-up to the public testimony you received last week. But I will probably leave it up to number 4 on the agenda today, so give you a little more time. Will that work?
Okay. That sounds good. And that was, I thought, in my opinion, was a successful meeting at the Washington Farm Bureau last week. Very good. Takes us to agenda item number 3, consent items A through F. The first one, 3A, is Human Resources Collective Bargaining Agreement.
Yeah, Commissioners, you reviewed this item last week, and for your consideration, tax increase at that point was 47 cents per 1,000 valuation. The action that you took, there was some elements on the ballot proposition. There was a blank, and the reason at that point is because we didn't know what the total valuation of the properties in the county will be until the end of this year. So now we know what the valuation is. So this particular proposal for you, that would be ordinance number 15864, is a follow-up to the ordinance you passed back in November. And just to give you a gist of this, when you started having that conversation of what will be the levy left and what will be the capacity of the county may have, you were looking at probably the current levy left was about $1.25 last year per 1,000 valuation. Fast forward to today, that we are just about a little under $1.01 per valuation, $1.10 per valuation. So this ordinance narrow down the request. They will go to the voters, and it states the following. And I'm going to read the whole proposition for the record. The Board of County Commissioners of Thurston County adopted ordinances numbers 1580 and 1586, which is the one for consideration this afternoon, concerning property taxes for a new courthouse and administrative buildings, to finance construction of buildings, to consolidate county offices, including payments on bonds and other county purposes. This proposition will increase the county's 2021 regular property tax levy to an authorized rate of $1.56 per 1,000 valuation. Estimated increase, this is in parentheses, of 47 cents per 1,000 over the 2020 levy close parentheses. Excepting qualified seniors, disabled veterans from the levy, and use the 2021 levy as the base for subsequent levy limitations for a total of 25 years. And that is the limitation. And then you have approve or reject. That is in just the ordinance that is up for your consideration this afternoon. Any questions?
Yeah, so this is amending ordinance number 15840, but you gave two other ordinance numbers. Those are the amendments?
So the 15840 is the one you passed back in November 12. Ordinance 15864 is the ordinance that is up for your consideration today. But we need to add those two ordinances on the ballot.
Got it, okay. I just wanted to be clear. Thank you. Any questions? Questions, comments? Okay. 4B, appointment of the Con Statement Committee member.
So also, if the board decides to take this action this afternoon, I have ready two other actions that are required for you to submit to the county auditor, a pro and con committee. So I have received 3 individuals. They're willing to serve in the con committee, meaning they will write a statement that will be added to the ballot proposition. That will be Mr. John Pettit, Mr. Glenn Morgan, and Mr. Kevin O'Sullivan, who have agreed to serve on writing the con statement for the ballot proposition number 1.
Okay, questions, comments?
No, sir.
Thank you. 4C, appointment for the Pro Statement Committee members.
On the same terms, I received a formal request for you to consider appointing on the Pro Committee Representative Beth Dolio, Mayor Cheryl Selby, and Mayor J.W. Foster to the Pro Committee, where they will be writing a Pro statement related to the proposition number 1.
Anything?
No, sir.
All right, thank you. 4D, then we report on our assignments and work sessions and such, and board members, or board meetings, and then county manager update. And then we move right into a public hearing this afternoon, right thereabouts 3 o'clock, public hearing from Community Planning and Economic Development on the preliminary plan extension amendments to Title 18.
Yeah, this afternoon, Commissioners, you will have a public hearing where you receive public testimony related to proposed changes to Title 18, and that is related to preliminary plat extension amendments. You have received a couple of briefings related to this proposal, and what it does is it allows for a little more flexibility for extensions on a preliminary plats. And I just want to make sure that you understand there is no financial request, no fees, no financial additions to this particular request. It's just provide flexibility to the development community as they move along on their plat approval. And for your consideration, depending on the public testimony, I have 2 actions for you. One is to close the public hearing, and depending on the public testimony for your consideration, for you to approve the amendments to Title 18. That is up to your preview. Depending on the public testimony, you can delay that, and you can have a conversation later on if you like.
Questions, comments? Good. All right, that concludes today. Now we'll move into the agenda for Tuesday, February 11th, 2020. And we'll convene the meeting at 2 o'clock, and Pledge of Allegiance led by Vice Chair Commissioner Menser. Approval of the agenda and the board meeting minutes from today. Opportunity for the public to address the board. And the county manager's update.
And I will follow up with the testimony that you might receive today.
That takes us into agenda item number 3, consent items A, B, and C. The first one is the sheriff amending petty cash fund.
Yeah, the Sheriff's Office is requesting for you to take an existing petty cash account, which is the total of $1,000, and split it into 2. So to reduce the existing petty cash account to $200 and the remaining $800, to create another petty cash account of $800. And that is going to be located here on building number 3. And based on their justification, will allow them to process any cash payments on the services they provide to the citizens.
Okay. Anything? Anything on that? Nope. 3B, Public Health and Social Services, establishing positions and class.
Yeah, for your consideration, Commissioners, is for you to consider creating a 0.6 full-time FTE. That will be a community health nurse number 3 with an end date. And the end date is February 28, 2021. How this item came as a need, we have a couple of current full-time nurses. They are expecting, so they're planning to have obviously maternity leave, and we need to make sure that we have enough backing on the program when they are going to be on maternity leave. Some of the nurses who are currently expecting, when they go on maternity leave, they're going to be only utilizing 75% of the full time. So this will be covered by those salary savings while they're in maternity leave. And again,
Good.
This is just to fill the gap while those nurses are in maternity leave.
Okay. Anything?
I'm good, thanks.
Good.
Okay. Wonderful.
And Shelley's here if you have any questions.
Doesn't sound like it. Thank you, Shelley. 3C, the auditor, the vouchers, and we'll get through that next week, or this next week. Department item number 4, juvenile court probation, approval of a contract with CYS for diversion.
This program, the juvenile court has been implemented for quite some time, I believe, since a few years, where they have been assigned to the community youth services a diversion program. And in fact, for over 35 years, that has been the provider. So their request is for you to consider to award the amount of $311,681 to the period, for the period of January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2022 to provide, again, juvenile diversion services, and that is in accordance to RCW 13.40040. There is some requirements for you to consider. That will be to award this contract. And if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to take those questions and get the answers for you next week.
Okay, I do.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions, Commissioner?
Yeah, I'll have a couple questions.
You as well? If you have, go ahead and spit 'em out.
Say last year then, what was the expenditure last year and what fund did that come out of? Just roughly, it doesn't have to be exact.
Yeah, let me get some information for you.
It would have been from the general fund for truthful.
Right. So they're not requesting to have a budget amount in this proposal.
It's just waiving requirements
Yeah.
of procurement.
Well, that's therein is my second question is,
Yeah.
how does that work within the law? I mean, we're saying we don't need to go out to bid or something about that, and
Because it's professional.
It's professional services.
we've got a history of working with that particular organization, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. And the
And
procurement.
they've provided the service.
Yeah, and the procurement policy states that you as a legislative authority could waive those requirements, not only if a professional organization has been providing services to the county, and this is the case. So it's two-step process in here, is to waive those requirements under the procurement policy and also consider awarding the contract to community youth services.
And I guess I'm wondering, are we going to be spending more money this time than we spent last time? That's all I'm curious
So I will
about.
get that answer to that question next week. I don't have that information right now.
I mean, I know there's a move afoot to try and adjust some of the activities involving juveniles. And the juvenile court, we've still got empty beds, you know, quite a few over there. We're gonna have all empty beds pretty quick, or what are we doing? I just need to know a little more about that, please.
So I will bring some information to compare the expenditures from this past year versus the current request.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and also we'll give you a specific information as to where the funding source is coming from to confirm there's general fund.
Well, I guess it's gonna be general fund. The amounts now, are we starting to get ahead of the game, saving money? I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
Do you have any questions, Commissioner?
My questions will be covered by the information for that was just requested, so.
And many will, my questions will be as well. But one I have is regarding the CYS and diversion. I fully support that. They've got a robust, successful diversion program that many years ago I was a part of that diversion volunteering. But my question is, they're not sole source. Okay. So if we waive the requirements for this, is that going to bring up any kind of issues for other folks that need to go through the procurement process for whatever the issue is?
No.
Nope? Okay. Because I fully support this. I just want to make sure we're doing legal and above board and nothing that's going to open up Pandora's box.
We wouldn't bring you any item for your consideration if we put you in a peril.
No, and I appreciate that. And I didn't mean to imply that, but if it's going to open up the door for other folks to say, hey, what about us? What about us? What about us?
So many of our offices and departments use the waiver for professional services. It's not
Okay.
common for you to see.
Okay. Oh, good. Thank you.
And you will have another item similar to that later on your agenda.
Okay. On this agenda?
Yes.
Okay. Agenda item number 5, information technology, authorizing the purchase of mobile computer terminal tablets.
Yeah, for your consideration, Commissioners, the IT department is asking for you to give the authorization to the Director of Informational Technology to go ahead and purchase what they call MCT tablets in a vehicle docking station for a cost of $444,896.92. And the funding source related to that is the IT Reserve Fund, so they have been collecting money over time to do the replacement. The mobile computer terminal MCT tablets are mission-critical devices for the sheriff deputies to use on their patrol vehicles and substations. These mobile devices allow deputies to access all job-related systems, including the computer-aided dispatch, CAD, and the sheriff's record management system. The current MCT tablets were purchased with a 5-year life cycle, and those were installed back in 2015. The new MCTs will be compliant with the Criminal Justice Information Technology, also known as CJIS requirements, and it specifically will work in the new Windows environment. Also, it will include the newest steps that we are getting into cybersecurity that will include a multi-factor authentication. But the multi-factor is meaning that you no longer will be accessing via a single password. You will need another means to access your computer or county computer. The multi-factor authentication, the Sheriff's Office is going to move forward. The Auditor's Office also is moving in that direction. I will be working with Dennis to see how the whole county can move into that mode. Everything's obviously cost money, but that would be one step as to how we can start putting some safeguards related to cybersecurity and perhaps cyber attacks. Any questions?
A comment. Well, yeah, one question. Do you have anything?
Yeah, so it says it's a replacement, and it said that there are tablets had 5-year life. So am I to understand that the money paid into the reserve over the last 5 years is fully covering this cost?
That is correct.
Unlike the other systems that we discussed where we fell woefully short of putting aside the requisite amount of money to pay for the new system? That's what I'm asking. Are we on track here, or?
I believe we're on track, but Dennis could.
Yeah, Dennis Osorio, IT Director. Yes, we are on track. We've collected enough to cover the entire cost of these. These terminals, just like a lot of the workstations, are a lot easier to forecast as opposed to some of these huge systems that we're looking at. So.
Got it. Thank you.
Are these tough book?
They're GTACs. They were tested pretty thoroughly with the sheriff's office. I'm not sure if they are the tough. I wouldn't know the exact model. I know we tested three different vendors and multiple models from each one. So we put them in the cars and let the sheriffs and deputies check them out and essentially drive the business decision there.
Okay.
But I remember hearing the tough book term, but I'm not sure if this is the exact model.
Yeah, they're
Another model that we tested.
Yeah, they're really rugged.
Yes.
And the dual authentication, with having requirement of CGIS to have that in the computer system is required dual authentication, isn't it?
Correct. To access CGIS data, multi-factor authentication is one of the requirements. Correct.
Yeah, okay. That's it. Anything further? No?
No, sir.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 6, emergency services, a contract for hazard mitigation grant program.
I need to work with staff. We need to review the action, review on the background information. This is an extension to the existing grant. The board approved back in July 2018. This grant comes from the federal government to elevate properties there within the floodplain.
Floodplain.
The initial grant was $215,609, and we have received an additional $46,076, again from state and federal grants. So this is request is an extension of the existing contract, and also a revised amount on the grant that we received. So I will revise, I work with staff to revise the action on this, but that's the gist of it.
So more on that later.
So the action that you may be considering next week is to extend the existing contract for another few months in 2020 in order for us to receive additional grant funds and in order for us to utilize those monies.
Okay. Do you have anything?
No, sir.
Anything, Ty?
So that's what, because the motion, the action is not quite clear
Right.
on what I'm saying.
Okay. Thank you. Agenda item number 7, public health social services, a waiver of competitive solicitation.
Similar to the previous, this for your consideration is for you to consider waive the competitive solicitation on the same item on the county procurement policy, and this is to extend the contract with the Thurston County Chamber Foundation, and the Thurston County Chamber Foundation, as you recall, is the organization who provides the executive support for the Thurston Tribes Coordinating Council. The county participates on that effort, $40,000 a year. And also, late last year, you also took a different action, as you may remember, defining the memorandum of understanding, the agreement with the Thurston Tribes, just to make sure that we streamline the process to how we give the money, as well as how we get assurance of we get our back for our money. So, and again, this action for you to consider is to extend the existing contract to December 31st, 2020. And again, for the $40,000, there's already included on the 2020 budget. And Shelley's here to answer any questions.
Questions?
So the total contract amount is coming from last year?
Yeah, so the total contract, because last year was $40,000, that has been already done. Since the extension of the existing contract will be an additional $40,000 for 2020, so the total contract amount will be for $80,000.
Okay.
Any questions?
Was this budgeted,
Yes, sir.
and what fund does this come out of?
I think that comes from the general fund, I believe. Yeah. Is as part of the transfer from the general fund to public health.
And the 1 year is January through December?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, then 7B, interlocal agreement with the TMBHASO for the TST funds.
This is a yearly.
You'll explain the acronyms, please?
This is a yearly agreement. The county needs to go with the Thurston Nation Behavioral Health Administrative Services Organization, also known as the Thurston Nation Behavioral Health Organization, so many acronyms. And this is to transfer $2,500,033 from the treatment sales tax for the period of January 1st, 2020 to December 31st, 2020. And again, this is a yearly allocation. It's already included in the budget. It's already part of your decision-making process to where the TST funding will go. This is just the instrument to formalize that transaction.
Anything?
No, got it, thanks.
Got it. Thank you. And agenda item number 8 for next week, the sheriff interlocal agreement for mutual aid.
Yes, the sheriff's office will come to you and give you a feedback related to the proposed interlocal agreement related to the SWAT team. So there has been a lot of discussions over the last few months as to how the makeup of the regional SWAT team will be. So this is the final step in the process. I asked the undersheriff to come and give you a perspective as to how that went, what is the purpose of this agreement. And at this point, the signatories of this agreement is the City of Olympia, Thurston County, City of Lacey, City of Tumwater, and City of Yelp.
Is that one short of what? Okay.
But I think I believe that it was probably helpful for you to hear from the sheriff's office.
Yeah.
What has transpired the last few months and how we have gone to this point to have this interlocal agreement in place.
I'll just wait for them.
I'd like to hear that, yeah.
Anything?
No.
Today.
Then the county manager's update.
What, Commissioners,
Yes,
an item
I'm
that is
with you.
not in the draft agenda that you review, I will be bringing for your consideration for next week for you to set up public hearing. We receive an application for a telecommunications franchise with Zayo Group LLC, and the request for you to set up public hearing for March 3rd, 2020 at 3 in the afternoon or shortly thereafter. And this procedural as we go through when we receive an application for a franchise agreement to operate within the counties right away. The board needs to hold a public hearing before you can move forward on the next steps.
Okay.
Can you repeat the name of that company?
The name of that company is Zayo, Z-A-Y-O Group, LLC.
So that will be added then as an agenda item to set
Yes,
the public
you
hearing.
will see that agenda. I told you.
More information to come,
Okay.
I take it.
Yeah.
All right,
So
thank you.
I just don't want you to be surprised when you see this item next week that you have not reviewed.
Okay. Then you'll report back on other stuff,
Yeah.
new items, and then we'll go through our review as typical, and then we'll move into the Board of Health agenda, and I'm going to turn this over to the Chair of the Board of Health, Commissioner Menser.
Thank you. Morning, Shelley.
Good morning, Commissioners. Shelley Slaughter, Director of Thurston County Public Health and Social Services and Administrator of your Board of Health. And with me here is
Lydia Hodgkinson, Clerk of the Board of Health.
Okay, thank you. Looking at Tuesday, February 11th agenda, 3:30 p.m., the meeting will call to order. We will have presumably a motion to approve agenda and meeting minutes from January 14th. 3:35, section item 2 is proclamations, and the first one is Children's Dental Health Month.
Yes, so this is a rather easy Board of Health agenda for you this month. Starting with this proclamation, Children's Dental Health Month. It will be presented by Marianne Ogaro, our senior epidemiologist, as well as guests Karen Lewis, who's the senior program officer for our Cora Foundation, one of the funders of the grant that you approved at last week's BoCC meeting, as well as Caroline Sedano, who is the Oral Health and Reproductive Maternal and Child Health Program Manager for Choice Regional Health Network. And they will be accepting this proclamation as well as sharing some information on the importance of Children's Dental Health Month, oral hygiene, and the prevention of chronic diseases by highlighting how important it is to provide this kind of care for kids early on.
Any questions for Shelley about that?
Nope.
No, sir.
Okay. We have another proclamation, which is American Heart Health Month.
Yes, so the second proclamation that we have is American Heart Health Month, and Chris Hawkins is the program manager for our community engagement program, which includes the prevention of chronic diseases. And heart disease is the leading cause of death in the United States. We are also at an all-time high with child obesity that's contributing to additional cardiovascular deaths. And so we want to highlight the importance of being aware of heart disease and what people can do to prevent heart disease and have a healthy heart. We are working to identify an additional guest and have extended an invitation to Kurt Harden, our Director of Emergency Management, of course, here at Thurston County, who participated in this proclamation last year and also included information on the importance of CPR and just overall highlighting heart health. So we will have more information for you next week on if Director Harden's able to participate this year.
Questions on heart?
No, sir.
No.
Okay, opportunity for the public to address the Board of Health. Last meeting, we had a person addressing water quality. Any follow-up there, or?
From the citizen who spoke at last month's Board of Health, yes, we have worked on a response to her on that matter and are looking into extending water quality testing in the area of concern that was brought up. As far as public comment for this Board of Health, I have not been informed of any guests that may be coming to speak, but
okay. That's
always welcome, and we are ready to respond following their comments at a later time when they do.
I have a question regarding that. With the increase in testing, water testing, when will we get reports back on whether it's good, bad, or indifferent?
I don't know exactly when that will be, but we had a meeting last week with our homeless response coordinator, Kaylee Marino, our program manager, Tom Webster, as well as Art Starry and Jane Mountjoy Venning from our environmental health to discuss a strategy for addressing the citizen concerns and looking into adding some additional testing there. So right now we're in the phases of exploring what we are able to do in that area to assess potential impacts of the encampment referenced in those comments.
But is it documented there's an issue?
It is not documented that there's an issue at this time, but we are going to add an additional testing site to test for that. And then as soon as we have that, we'll provide you the results. But we have not yet planned when and exactly where that will be yet. But we are actively working with our staff on making sure that that happens.
Okay.
Will we see the response when it goes out?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll provide you a copy of our response to the citizen, as well as I will update you and brief you on our plans for that area.
At what point will we get some type of an update review on water testing on the upper Deschutes?
I am not sure about that, but I can certainly ask our environmental health staff, and we can provide that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Perhaps we can schedule a Board of Health briefing coming up
Could that be part of it? February 26th, we have a 2-hour
Oh, yes.
briefing on that, and maybe we can tie some of
Yes.
that on the results of that.
Yes.
Perfect.
Thank you, Romero. Yes, we will plan to do that and add that answer to your question as well as this particular topic to that session.
Okay, agenda item 4 is the health officer's report.
So I will provide information from our acting health officers. The focus of the report will primarily be around updating you on coronavirus, of which we do not have any cases in Thurston County at this time.
Questions there?
Oh, no, done.
Number 5, director's report.
And I will just provide updates on various department items and highlight some achievements and some upcoming activities that we have to share with you as Board of Health and members of the public.
Questions for Shelley? Okay. Only one department item under 6, which is Thurston County Family Assistance Center.
Yes, so you have one presentation, and that is from our Public Health Emergency Preparedness Education and Outreach Specialist 2, Erica Catt, and she will be joined along with Stanley Phillips, who's a senior victim advocate at our Thurston County Prosecuting Attorney's Office, and they will be sharing information on the Thurston County Family Assistance Center, something that we're proud to have the opportunity to work on under Emergency Support Function 8, which includes public health response to emergencies. And this came about as in response to organizing and preparing around community needs after and during the midst of major disasters, such as the Nisqually train derailment and the Walmart shooting that we had in the last 2 years. So we were able to mobilize and respond to that to support families and victims impacted by those events by organizing a family assistance center with various community partners. And we continue to work on those relationships, and we'll share, our staff presenting will share more information on exactly what a family assistance center is and who participates in our community and how we're ready in the event of another disaster to provide those very critical community supports that improve the mental health and well-being of those affected.
Questions on that item? Okay, well, that's straightforward. And then we have just reporting on Board of Health members' health-related activities and adjournment, which might be before 5, who knows?
I certainly hope so. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. Thank you, Lydia.
Thank you. Now we're going to get to advisory boards and commissions.
Good morning again. La Bonita Bomar, Thurston County Clerk of the Board. I do not have any new proclamations at this time. The next proclamation that I will be working on will be Women's History Month for the month of March. And so I will be giving you a draft of that proclamation once it's put together.
Okay.
Under advisory boards and commissions, in your packet that's not on the list is a request from the Area Agency on Aging. This request came in to me yesterday afternoon. And the Area Agency, the Thurston County representation, has 2 vacancies. This was determined by the Council of Governments that the Area Agency recently had a meeting, and there needs to be an elected official that actually sits on that council, along with a member. We need 1 more member at large. So I have the information included in your packet for your review, and this is just to see if we can find someone that would be appropriate for that.
That's in here?
That's in there.
Okay. You sit on that.
I just thought it was more appropriate to bring it to this body to find out if either one of you folks have anybody of interest that might want to sit on that. It's any elected position, so it could be school board, city council, cemetery district, it doesn't matter what the elected position is, but if you've got an interest and you'd like to have someone sitting there, I thought that should go through this board rather than myself.
Could be conservation district too then?
It could be, yes, it could. Yeah.
Fire district?
I think it could.
PUD?
Yes, it could.
Just trying to recruit.
Anybody you might so desire that's got an election
Okay,
under their belt.
thank you.
On the list, we have a reappointment list from Board of Equalization. Robert Hastings has been on the board since 2017, and he is requesting to be reappointed, and staff is in support of that. Lee Rudy has been on the board since August 2019. He was filling an unexpired term and is requesting to be appointed to a full term. Staff also supports that reappointment.
Okay, anything on that?
No, I think I'm all in favor of going ahead with those.
Reappointments?
I haven't seen them till today, so can we
That's
just
fine.
revisit this next week?
Yes, we have plenty of time. This is coming in advance. The reappointments would need to be made by March.
Okay.
Okay. So
I might just point out, in the past, we've had reappointments oftentimes on the Board of Equalization, and it's a pretty complicated position that comes with a certain amount of training. And because of that, I would recommend that we try to follow through with a reappointment if at all possible, because I think it makes the Board of Equalization more effective.
Consistent.
Yeah.
I'm supportive too, but we'll wait. There's no rush.
Thank you.
Planning Commission.
Planning Commission has 2 vacancies, one for Commissioner District 1 and one for Commissioner District 2. I have 2 applicants that are under consideration, Elena McGrew and Elizabeth Robbins. Both of those applications have been sent to staff of the Planning Commission as of yesterday, and I have not as of yet heard back from staff. They would need to convene in one of their meetings so the members of the board could also review those applications. They just came in.
Do we have any idea when they're meeting next?
I believe I do. Hold on.
It's not that vital, you should know, if you knew.
I forgot my cheat sheet. I will give you an email and let you know.
No, there's no worry on that. Just wondering. Any
So-
questions on the Planning Commission?
go ahead.
Go ahead, Gary.
I was just going to ask, did we have some resignations or term expires, or what brought this about?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
I will have to check. I don't.
Okay.
Because there weren't vacancies last month.
Right.
So
So-
now
Let me-
something's happened.
I,
Planning Commission.
who's that? Oh,
We didn't hear the beginning part of the.
Why are there planning commission vacancies?
how did it?
unaware of it.
I was
Again,
told
we
there were
didn't hear
2.
Again, we didn't hear the beginning of this discussion. Can you refresh our memory?
There's 2 vacancies on the Planning Commission. We just want to know why there's 2 vacancies.
I talked to
If
Sonia
you don't know,
yesterday.
we can get that information.
Yeah, we're,
later.
it's
I
have
don't
to
know.
know.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to talk into the mic instead of yelling from the back of the audience. At this time, we're not aware of any vacancies on the Planning Commission, but we'll work with the clerk of the board to better understand what she's presenting.
Thank you.
Joshua Cummings, Community Planning, Economic Development.
Perfect answer and introduction.
Very good.
I found out from Sonia.
Thank you.
So I'll check with her again.
Could be that a term's coming up or something.
I'll check with
It will,
staff.
maybe they put up, we just receive interest.
Yeah, it could just be
Yeah,
a,
yeah. So we'll
Okay,
circle back.
very
on that.
good. Fair Board.
The Fair Board, oops,
Jan Gilliam's been
she's been on our list
hanging
for a
for
while.
quite some time, now,
She
like
has.
6 months, it seems.
No. And staff of that board will be reviewing the application on February the 5th, when their next meeting will be held. That would be Thursday. And Agriculture Advisory Committee,
Tomorrow.
Mr. Thomas Watson has been invited by the committee to their next meeting, and which is February the 20th. They have not made a decision one way or another on his appointment.
So the Fair Board meets tomorrow, and is this on their agenda then to
Yes.
to discuss?
That's
Okay.
what I'm told, yes.
Okay.
Can we,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I don't know, this is moving very fast.
We can go back to the Fair Board then next week
Yes.
when we hear back from the Fair Board. Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Commissioner Messick had a question.
Yeah, are you going to the Ag?
No, Fair
Oh,
Board
wait.
just went right by me. So there's 2 vacancies. We have 1 applicant, and am I tracking this? And then
Yes.
that person's going to, go to the meeting, or we're waiting for the Fair Board to weigh in, or what's the status?
We're waiting for the Fair Board to weigh in. They will be meeting February the 5th.
Okay. And we've had this particular name, looks familiar. We've had this applicant for
Over a month.
about a month. Okay.
No, we've had this, Jan
Since-
Gillingham's been on for about 3 or 4 months, maybe even 5.
I will
And
look
then-
at my date on the bottom.
And then Fair Board, because we just hit like 2 Fair Board new app. Did we have 4 or 5
We did.
vacancies, and now we're down to 2?
Yes,
And potentially 1 if this person is appointed?
that is correct.
Okay, because I know we just added a
A
couple.
couple, yes, we did.
Okay, just in the last year. Okay, and then after that was Ag. I'm with you now.
Okay.
Thomas Watson has had his application in, and Mr. Watson has been invited to the Agriculture Advisory Committee next meeting, which will be February the 20th.
Okay, thank you.
I'll catch up just a moment here. Okay. I see on the applications, there's no, oh, I see, never mind.
Ask him.
I just see that on the applicant for different boards, it has a signature, a block at the bottom, and a date block, but Jan Gillingham didn't sign or date it.
Correct.
So I was looking to see, okay. So regarding the Ag Advisory Committee, where are we at with Mr. Watson?
I think he's going to be reviewed by the Ag Board on the 20th
Of February.
February.
Okay.
And then they'll make a recommendation.
Do you know him?
No,
This gentleman, do
I
you
don't
know this?
believe I do.
Do you know him? Okay. Thank you. And current vacancies?
Under current vacancies, Jenna, for the Timberland Regional Library Board of Trustees, previous member, or Jenna Knoll, did not want to be reappointed, so we now have a vacancy for the Timberland Regional Library Board.
Okay.
And she's representative of Thurston County?
Yes, that's a Thurston County representative.
Okay, anything on that? Go ahead.
Well, I think we had somebody from the prosecutor's office that was sitting on that some months back.
But he stepped down.
Joseph Wheeler, but
Is this
he's,
was this a fairly new appointment?
A
that he's stepping
new
down?
vacancy. The vacancy that you recall was already, you already took an action
We already
on that.
filled that one. but
right,
did
This is
person-
that was a
new-
Kathleen Varney.
That's not the person that stepped
That's
down.
not-
No,
it's not.
That's all I was wondering.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's
No.
a new vacancy.
New vacancy, okay, good, thank you.
That appointment was Kathleen Varney that we just appointed.
Okay,
Right, right, right.
And agritourism.
That needs to be corrected, that's my mistake.
Corrected to
And
what?
I corrected, updated, we just appointed
Okay.
a couple people to that board. I believe there's 1 vacancy left, we've just appointed 2. And I will update, the Agriculture Advisory Committee still has 1 non-farmer and 1 farmer vacancy, and we're still waiting on their decision about Mr. Watson.
Okay.
The others, the vacancies on the list have been ongoing, and we're still looking for a person for the Boundary Review Board, Citizen Commission on Salaries for Elected Officials, and that one has to be a legal representative specifically.
Anything on the BRB?
No, sir.
Diane?
So we have, I should know this, right? There's 10, so we have 9 appointed members then to the Salary Commission, because you're saying there's only one
Right.
vacancy?
That is correct.
Okay.
And I have not received any applications or inquiries for any of these other vacancies.
Anything further on the BRB?
No.
Citizen Commission on Salaries for Elected Officials.
I have not received any information.
There's just one vacancy.
That is
Okay.
correct. It is a legal representative that we need.
Okay.
Not a lawyer, could be a paralegal? Is it?
I will check on that.
And Fair Board, 2 vacancies, we already covered that.
Mhm.
Okay. That's it?
Yes, sir.
Wait a minute. On the back page.
Well, on the back is the
Just vacancies.
Planning Commission, which we have talked about. Historic Commission still has the 2 vacancies, and Noxious Weed Control Board, we have not had any, and that's been on here for over a year, the noxious weed, no inquiries.
Dang. Okay. And the folks I checked with
Correct.
don't have any interest in it or can't commit the time.
Okay.
All right.
Noxious weeds I've learned about this year, and it's more interesting than the citizens might think, so they should take a hard look at that. There's some really interesting stuff that happens.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you. Thank you, La. We're going to take a break at this point. Do you want to do that? Is that okay, Megan? I know it is, but it's all right with you? All right, we'll take a break. Call it 10:10. Let's be back at 10:20, please. 10-minute break.
Gosh, I feel sorry for those people too.
All right, welcome back. It is still February the 4th, 2020, and we're continuing on with the work session. And up next is, we're going to deviate from the agenda here and jump to an issue regarding Mr. DeVette and the private conservation easement request.
Yeah, let me frame the conversation, commissioners.
Thank you.
This is related to the Mazama pocket gopher as an endangered species. You know that in order for us to address the impacts of the development related to this particular species, among others, we need to develop a habitat conservation plan. The habitat conservation plan you approved to be submitted for the county as a whole on the 3rd draft a couple of weeks ago, and that is going through the process of being reviewed by U.S. Fish and Wildlife. So that will really be the instrument in which any particular property owner can come do their business in a way, and the county will address the impacts on the habitat of the Mazama pocket gopher, and those property owners will go on their own way. Absent that, we have been developing what we call an interim process. An interim process is in which an applicant comes, and we go through the process of having, at this point, we'll have 2 field reviews. And the field review will, staff will determine whether there is an existence of Mazama pocket gopher, actually species living on those areas, or if they don't, then we issue the permit to continue the process. In the event that in fact, a particular applicant finds the presence of Mazama pocket gopher, in the past we have exercised 2 options for the citizens. One is obviously the citizens can wait until the county can have a habitat conservation plan in place, and at that point the citizens will move forward with their particular development, so on and so forth. The other option they have is an individual citizen can go ahead and develop their own habitat conservation plan that needs to be submitted to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife as an independent review. There has been, I believe, a couple of those individuals who have gone through this process with U.S. Fish and Wildlife. You may recall a couple of years ago, the McLeans. Those were a family, they wanted to build a home and in South County, and it just happens they found the existence of the species within the impacted area. They went through their individual habitat conservation plan and went through the review with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife to the point in which they needed to reserve a portion of their property in perpetuity as a result of their impact. And I believe it was about 1 acre. One of the key elements of that process was that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, in order for them to approve a final habitat conservation plan for the McLeans at that point, they needed to have a third party to take ownership and oversight of that 1 acre set aside for in perpetuity. We have a lot of conversations with the board at that time. And at that point is when the county, as a direction of report for the county to take the responsibility to maintain that private easement in perpetuity. And reporting on a yearly basis to make sure that easement stays on the purpose in which it was intended to be reserved for the impacts of the McLeans. Also, at that point, the board, and through many briefings, even my suggestion was for the board to consider this on a case-by-case basis. Because it was whether you like to approve on a programmatic basis, no matter who they come, the county just absorb easements to maintain in perpetuity. I recall at that point advising the board that perhaps you may need to exercise that decision-making process on a case-by-case basis, without knowing at that time how many of those easements the county will take the responsibility to maintain in perpetuity. And that really, at least from my point of view, becomes somewhat of an unknown risk. And that's how we move forward with the McLeans. We developed the appropriate paperwork. We submitted to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife. They approved the permit, and I believe now they're living on their home. They have been able to build within that footprint. In the meantime, also Mr. Tibetan has gone through the process with the same process that my clients went through. And his kids. So through, as we go through the process, the diligence that Mr. Tibetan has put into this process is just remarkable to me. I think he has come and keep you up to date as to the process in which he has gone through with U.S. Fish and Wildlife. And here we are. He has come to the point in which he is requesting now the county to take that easement for the county to maintain as a third party as a requirement of U.S. Fish and Wildlife. That is really the gist of this conversation. But also I will encourage you to continue to exercise your decision-making process on a case-by-case basis. And the reason that I'm saying this, we just received a request. I'm still looking into the details of this request from Puget Sound Energy. They're going through the same process. And I think they're going to be coming to a conclusion in which they want the county to take not just one easement, but many easements as a result of their. So, and that is probably my suggestion for you, again, to continue to exercise your decision-making process to accept those easements on a case-by-case basis. We need to explore as to the impacts of PSE, as to what that request really is. So that is more to come for your consideration. So I just want to frame that. Is anything that I miss?
Yeah, one thing.
Well, hang on.
No, I think that's good.
I'm going to guess that we have a lot to say.
Yep.
But do you have something, you don't have anything to add before we jump in?
No, Jennifer Davis, CPED. I want to echo what Ramiro said and say that easements are their contracts, so they obligate participants to to certain responsibilities, enforcement, monitoring. So case by case, I agree, is a good approach because it allows us to look at the individual easement language as we enter into it and have the proper legal review.
Okay. Then I'll open it up. Yeah.
I guess one additional item I'd follow up with is it's my understanding that anybody that opts to go this way, when we get our HCP in place and get a mitigation process in place, then they can opt out through the new mitigation process if they want, which will make it a little simpler on everybody.
Well, yeah, absolutely. That's the purpose of the county's HCP.
So it's just a temporary until we get our HCP.
Yeah, because the individual property owners will not have to go through this process that perhaps Mr. Tibetan has gone through. That's really the pivotal point of having the county their own HCP is really helping the citizens to move forward. And we absorb the responsibility of the mitigation related to their development.
Yeah, man.
Well, I think you're talking about two different things, because I think what Commissioner Edwards is talking about is when I was, U.S. Fish and Wildlife talked to me about this, they suggested that we include a provision in this contract that would allow this particular easement to be swapped if there's a bank or a credit. Once our HCP, then Mr. Tibetan's could be swapped such that then the county would only have this obligation for a limited period of time, as Commissioner said. So I'm supportive of that. And
sorry, I misunderstand the question. Absolutely, that will be because it will not make sense for us to maintain individual easements after we've had the HCP. So thank you for the clarification.
But if that happens, is there an additional cost to Mr. Tibetan or anybody else that we're doing an easement for?
I think we on the McLean's we had a nominal fee. You recall what that was?
I'm talking about the conversion. Once we do have an HCP in place from the feds, then and he wants to opt out, or anybody wants to opt out, is there an additional cost to that at that point?
So in this case, Mr. Tibetan of the McLean's will not have anything to do when we get our own HCP, because at this point the county is taking that responsibility at this point. So the
it's our benefit. Yeah, it's to our benefit to swap it out.
So the property owners will have nothing to do.
They will have nothing. Okay, no. Good.
No impact.
Got it. Okay. And one question, and then well, I'll start with the question. What will it cost us to do that? To maintain the easement for Mr. Tibetan?
That's a good question.
And I'm not talking about to the pennies. Because number one, it's taxpayer dollars. I'm a taxpayer. Mm-hmm. I don't care what it costs. I want to do it. I want to do it.
So Joshua Cummings, Director of Community Planning and Economic Development. Sorry, I'm a little tardy to this discussion. I was in the hall with a citizen that had some questions and being service oriented. But in terms of the overarching picture of the easement, we do see this as a positive line of service that we can provide to the citizens of Thurston County. In terms of the cost, what we do know is that we need to have a holistic look at how those costs are all factored in. The time that it takes to go out onto the properties, the time that it takes to ensure that all of these things are correct. When we did this a couple of years ago, before any of us were engaged in this process, we didn't have much experience with this. And so what we're doing now within CPED is reviewing the experience that we've had with the first Tibetan easement and the McLean easement and seeing what those total costs really are. So we don't have a clear answer at this time, but we do know that if we're going to have this be a line of service, we need to have a whole cost accounting of what it's really going to take.
We're in the policy business, but we're also in the service business, service to the community, citizens, and service can be defined as love of people. And this is policy versus people, but we can combine the two. And I want to be able to look Mr. Tibetan in the eye and say, let's do it, we're going to make this happen. I'm sick and tired of dinking and fiddling over the last few years with this issue and get it done.
Yeah, the way that we build it for Tibetan, again, transparency, consistency, and accountability, we want to be able to be consistent when the next citizen comes in and asks for something similar, or organization like a company or other group that wants to do easements as well, if they come and ask us, we want to make sure that what we build for Tibetan and others, we can replicate when we're asked again and again. So being consistent is really important to us.
Okay, you had your hand up.
I believe it's just an annual inspection is what I understand those conversations consisted of when we put this together. So it's a one-time shot. It can't be too much.
Once it's up and going, correct.
It's what one yearly inspection and one report, because we need to report that to you.
Report to the
But
Fed.
there's also startup costs. Let's be clear that that's once it's up and going. There's a startup cost to getting all of that process ready, having all of those pieces put together, and that's exactly what we're exploring, Commissioner.
I echo the chairman's position that we need to get it done.
And like I said at the beginning, this is a positive line of service for CPED. We think that this is a good thing as well.
Go ahead.
So we've got McLean, and I didn't catch it in Ramirez's presentation, but we're also managing Mr. Tibetan's, Todd's.
First one.
First one, right?
Correct.
And what I understood from my conversation with Fish and Wildlife is that they've actually negotiated, they've negotiated the placement of the easement so that the two will be adjacent for the two properties that under Mr. Tibetan.
The two under, yes, as far as we know, that's what we've understood from Mr. Tibetan, actually.
I believe that's
Well, I had that
continuous.
confirmed. I had that confirmed by U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and so I'm just pointing that out because, I mean,
Better for the species.
we're already, well, I'm just saying, we're already inspecting, this parcel, and this parcel's like adjacent. I can't imagine you could have a lower amount of marginal cost to adding an easement than this situation.
Again,
Based on, I mean, given that we're going case by case, we're going to look at each case individually. You couldn't draw up on paper a less burdensome, additional thing than this, because we're already we've already accepted one. We've got now an adjacent piece of added property. Is that fair statement?
that's extremely fair, and I feel like we're kind of saying the same thing. We want to do it also. We just need to have the information to make sure that we're doing the right thing.
And I appreciate Josh's perspective in terms of providing all that information to the board. I don't believe the staff and myself necessarily against absorbing or taking responsibility of those easements.
Definitely.
We just want to make sure that you understand there is a cost associated with it. And that is really the gist, I believe, of Josh's perspective.
Exactly.
There's always a cost to whatever we provide services. We just need to make sure that you're aware of that before you make a decision on this matter.
And just so I'm clear, just so my point is clear, I appreciate that for sure. As a good attorney, I'm making it clear that there are distinguishing characteristics specific that may not apply in the next person that comes down the line. If it's PSC, how about manage these 37 easements? There may be very good reasons why we don't do that.
It's different. Yeah.
Precedent is this precedent is very limited based on the very limited facts, very specific facts. That's why I was pointing out. These are very specific and limited facts that make this a really easy
I agree.
call.
I totally agree.
That
with
would
your
not
perspective.
necessarily apply to the next citizen and not being inconsistent.
So you're right on. So setting up the parameters of each scope is part of that exploration that we're trying to accomplish.
And that is my suggestion for the board to continue to exercise your decision-making process on a case-by-case basis.
So I have to believe you when you say you're a good attorney.
Like a good attorney. I'm trying to be like one.
Or like one. And that's why my first, to your point, my first question was, what's it going to cost before I vote to do it? But I have to be diligent in what's it going to cost, so I have that information, it's out there, and then I can vote. Yes, sir.
Well, the PSE property is about a mile away, so it won't be too bad.
Oh, is it? From this property?
Yeah.
So what's the next step, Romero?
So the next step, I'd really would like for the board to provide direction. Provide direction for us to start moving this process forward. And there is a couple of steps that we need to take before you actually take a formal action on the Board of County Commissioners.
Let's not drag it out too long with a bureaucratic process.
Commissioner.
But you want thumbs up now or something?
Yeah, give us direction if you'd like to continue with the process.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all, and Mr. DeVetten, thank you. You're like family.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anything else on that, Romero, or is that done and dusted at this point?
I don't have anything else on that.
Thank you, sir. That takes us to the PIO check-in. Yay.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Megan Porter, Public Information Supervisor. Just a little update on our live stream. The visual is working now, the sound is not. So they're back in there working on it. It is being recorded, so we will be able to upload that recording to YouTube. So we will still have a recording of this. It's just not currently live streaming correctly. So
But it's still being recorded, the video's recording, but the audio is not recording?
at this point, yes.
So there's no audio of this meeting? Yeah. That they can later dub
Well,
together?
we're recording it in a different way. It's just not being live streamed.
Okay, got it, okay.
They can watch them separately.
Yeah.
Or dub it in. Okay. That's a great update.
A 6-hour experience instead of 3 hours.
Good grief.
But we'll get the full one uploaded, so it's a seamless recording.
You're always entertaining.
Update from last week, I reached out to Shauna Stewart at the BCB. I'm going to be meeting with her next Friday to talk about the collaboration and how we can make sure that we get county information out to people who possibly are looking to move here or do business here. I've asked Jenica, our economic development manager, to attend as well, just so she has that economic development lens and we can get moving forward on that conversation. And then this morning you received a copy of the HCP OpenGov story that we're hoping to get posted. You all have that in your inbox, along with a list of the outreach activities that CPED has completed as of yet. And so you can see what work has been done. We'll use that story for additional outreach. We'll put it out on social media and we'll send it out to our constant contact list so that people are getting the overview of what the HCP is and how it helps moving forward. We're continuing negotiations with the apparent successful vendor for the website, so that's ongoing, hoping to get that sealed up so we can get the contract. And we can get that.
Why are you yelling at me
really
now?
loud, sorry.
Can you start yelling?
Okay, Megan, okay.
Was that the punch?
Wow.
So the Thurston County Connection that you filmed at the studio, the roundtable with the commissioners, that is slated to be released on Friday, February 7th. We'll share it on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of our social media. So that one's coming out soon. And then just kind of an update from the meeting last week off-site. 38 people attended, 38 citizens attended, and the video has been watched 114 times since last week. So it was well received. And that's all I have. Do you have anything for me? Thank you.
The bill levels the playing field by listing subcontractors for all projects. Washington State makes great investments into apprenticeship and career connect. However, all the training and preparations have no effect if they have no jobs. The bill will help determine the demands for apprenticeship and expand the workforce in a matter of transparency. The con statement. This should be vetting through the Capital Projects Advisory Review Board to determine the right approach. Mandatory bid listing of all subcontractors is not the right approach, and it has been demonstrated to be not to be a cost-effective method. The trend is to go away from this type of approach. 40 states don't have mandatory listing of subcontractors, and neither does the federal government. If subcontractor must be listed on a contract, it will require a large amount of work for contractors. It is already difficult to figure out what bids are low and responsive, and this will add additional complexity to this issue. This bill will not impact apprenticeships. The state has rules on apprenticeships utilization that are already in place, and it's the best interest of the contractors, whether they are prime contractors or subcontractors, to hire an apprentice because it costs less.
So it does not impact or affect apprenticeship? Okay.
That's the con statement.
So Senator Hunt is one of the co-sponsors, and looking at the Senate bill report, the folks testifying in favor include the Iron Workers Local 86, the Iron Workers Apprenticeship, the Washington State Building and Construction Trades Council, the Heat and Frost Insulators Local 7, Pacific Northwest Iron Workers, and Laborers Local 242. The folks testifying against included Associated General Contractors and AGC and Osborne Construction. So from my perspective, given our senator's sponsorship and its heavy support by state and labor, I'm at least neutral. I certainly would not oppose this, and I voted in favor and inclined to stay in that position.
So it says that's third reading, passed a first reading in the House just a few days ago. Has it changed? Has it been amended or changed at all? Do we know the wording?
I don't have any updates on that, Commissioner.
Robin, you're well versed on this stuff. When it progresses on, do we know if it's been changed or amended?
I'm good.
Then I'm good with neutral as well. Yeah, rather than opposition. Because I don't know if WASAC, I have their meeting coming up, the legislative committee meeting, and I don't know if their position's changed, if the bill has changed in any way.
So I think we looked that up.
But just based on what Commissioner Menser said,
Yeah,
I'm going to have to.
If you like to add additional real estate excise tax 1 and real estate excise tax 2.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I see it says authorizing cities. How come it doesn't say authorizing government units?
Oh, I'm sorry, the bill includes counties and cities.
It does?
Yeah.
It does?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which bill are you?
This is the 1679. Yeah, it's for counties and cities.
Okay.
Does it give the ability to scale those to, this thing is really,
Pardon me?
I'm going to put this away. Does it give the ability to scale the tax to,
Yes.
huge transactions, maybe pays X, and more middle class style home sales would not pay at all or would pay Y? Does it give that flexibility?
I'm not quite sure if they give you the ability to, somewhat of a tabular taxation, meaning single family homes.
Graduated by.
I think there is another bill that does that. Not this one. This one, what it does is gives you the ability to go do a consumatic approach to increase up to a certain amount. We already have a real estate excise tax 1. We already have a real estate excise 2. When you review some of the potential new revenues last week, this is one of them that you can have actions, but it requires voter approval. This removes that.
We already have these.
Yeah. But things in addition to what we have. So that's what I have on that. Any additional questions?
They don't know it's not working, do they? My question is, it says to impose certain real estate excise tax. Which are the certain?
Real estate excise tax 1 and 2.
We can just choose 1 or 2. That's it, okay.
This, on a quick read, this does nothing for us. All it does is remove the voter requirement
Right.
on
Yeah.
taxes that we already collect.
But I think there's another real estate excise tax too that we reviewed last Friday.
That is conservation REIT, and it is a different law. It's not
Oh.
102.
Okay.
And this bill very clearly, I'd want to look, but I don't think it applies.
Because I believe the real estate tax is under the same law, but we'll confirm.
No, it's not. This is specifically for the 1/4 of the 1%.
And the amount that's imposed, if there is an increase, is that arbitrary or is that set by statute?
I'm sorry, what?
The amount that it would increase?
This would not increase the amount that we collected. All this does is remove the requirement for voter.
For vote.
For a jurisdiction that hasn't already authorized the tax, you said we're already collecting.
That's correct.
So we already have, somehow we already got the authority to,
That's why it is my opinion that this does nothing for our county. It has no impact on
Ah.
it.
So let us go back to see.
let's stay neutral till we find out
Yeah.
that it's actually something.
Next bill that I have for you, and the reason that it's struck out is House Bill 2383. It is requiring default related to beverages to kids. And I think public health and was always supporting this bill. And the reason that I crossed it out, I don't know if you really want to take a position on this bill. I don't think it has a significance on the county.
Mine's scratched out.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So you know why it's scratched out. The next bill is House Bill 2501. And
You don't understand?
Well, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
What does default beverages mean?
That's okay.
is related to eliminating sugary drinks in schools for children. Then Wasalfo is supporting this, but I don't know if you want to take a position. My suggestion was,
I don't know enough
the
about it.
organization is already tracking, but I don't know if the county itself will take a position on
That's
this.
fine with me.
That's fine.
This is just my recommendation, by the way.
That's okay. I'm good with it.
So the next item that I have for you is concerning uses of multi-use roadway safety account. The summary of the bill expands the eligible purposes in which grants from the multi-use roadway safety account may be made to include grants to counties to perform maintenance and roads authorized to be used, but all-wheel terrain vehicles as part of the travel tourism route grants on the purpose of educational brochure mappings technology of those vehicles. As you may recall, a couple of years ago, there was a new law that passed that allows for the use on county roadways for less than 25 miles an hour.
Less than 35, isn't it?
I think it's 25, Commissioner.
Okay.
To ATVs to use the county roadways as long as they register and so on and so forth. The Sheriff's Office came, you took an action law on those, as you may recall. So this allows to access those grants for those particular roadways who are classified to be used for ATV uses. Okay. So my suggestion is support it.
Okay.
House Bill 2603 and Senate Bill 6494. This one modifies provisions of the Trust Water Rights Program related to donations, leases, and co-assignments of water rights. Requires an entity seeking the use of a state water trust in water banking purposes to submit a water banking application to the Department of Ecology. Requires the Department of Ecology to publish preliminary decisions on the water banking applications to accept public comments for 14 days. prohibits water conservancy boards, which I have on your agenda, this boards from processing applications to transfer of water rights in the State Water Trust when the purpose of the application is to change the purpose of the use of water rights in stream flow and mitigation out of stream uses. The reason that I have neutral because there's so many bills related to water rights that at this point I can now give you a perspective as to how all those bills connect with each other. Maybe in a couple of months when those bills are whittled down, we'll know which one are moving forward, and then maybe at that point we'll have a more robust conversation. So my suggestion at this point will be to be neutral.
In a couple of weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, by the 19th of February is when they're going to be accepting any new bills on the floor. So at that point we'll know which ones are moving forward. So House Bill 2639. And this creates the Home Sharing Support Grant Program in the Department of Commerce, allows Commerce to use a portion of funds generated by the Homeless Housing and Assistance Surcharge to fund the program. This is, again, another program that will help us on homeless and housing assistance, and my suggestion is for you to support this bill. House Bill 2649, that is concerning homeless shelter capacity. And the reason that I have my suggestion for you is a concern. It requires certain counties and cities to amend local homeless housing plans by December 1st, 2020 and expand shelter and sanction camping capacity to serve at least 50% of the homeless people living within the jurisdiction. Redirect certain fundings from the homeless housing assistance surcharge due to a county and the city without an amendment of the local plans by Commerce. Requires the Department of Commerce to contract with eligible entities to execute a homeless sheltering plan in a county and city without amending the local plan. And this applies for any county and city with a population more than 15,000. That will apply to us. The concern that I have with this bill imposes a very restrictive threshold. The county needs to develop a plan to at least address shelters. They will meet 50% of the population that is currently unsheltered.
Within the county or within city? I mean, how does this work with cities versus unincorporated counties? So
it says in counties with a population more than 40,000, in the county in a city more than population of 15,000 must its current local homeless housing plan by December 20 to include this 50% threshold.
But if Olympia, let's say, has to do it, and they have to do it, then do we count the same homeless because they're in the county and they're in the city, or is our responsibility limited to what's outside the municipalities?
My read of this, because the bill requires for each jurisdiction, again, over 40,000, the county, it will be for us to, the 50% will be based on the unsheltered population that has been counted and the unincorporators of the county.
Which we don't. Do we have that number?
Well, I don't know. That will be part of the conversation as to how we can get to that number. And it creates a concern because, you know, the unsheltered population really doesn't recognize boundaries. And that's, again, another concern that I have on this.
Well, I am fine with keeping the concern there. It sounds complicated.
Yeah, that is very, yeah. House Bill 2673.
I'm going to back up real quick to the water rights, because I wanted to go back. I knew we talked about that at the Legislative Steering Committee. And at that time, January 8th, there was no bill produced or admitted or dropped at that time. And so it was regarding water banking. They thought something might come from the governor, but apparently it didn't. There's been a House bill and a Senate bill then.
Well, last week you also reviewed a couple of bills related to water rights, if you may recall. So my suggestion for you to remain neutral is because there's so many bills, competing bills, that I really don't know how we can probably have a comprehensive analysis. And my suggestion will be after February 19th, when that's the last day in which any bills can be introduced to the floor of the Senate, the House of or the Senate, then at that point we'll know which bills are moving forward, and we'll have a more comprehensive analysis.
Okay, and then, excuse me, 2639, I apologize for stepping out to get this, my packet, but I missed the first part of that conversation. Is this something we're remaining neutral? What are we doing with that one?
2639, my suggestion is to support it.
And you were concerned it was convoluted or something?
No, that was the next one down.
The next one down?
2649.
2649.
Okay.
What would be some pretty significant,
Like unfunded mandate stuff.
Okay.
well, or the state of Washington will take the $8 surcharge that the county currently receives, keep it, and choose a contractor to work with in our county to create shelter. That's an imposition.
All right.
I would rather oppose it even than concern myself, but what was that, Robin?
Personally, I would oppose that, but that's completely up to the board, and I think at least concerns are in order. If we're going to express either concern or opposition, that needs to be done right away because it is once again scheduled for exec out. Apparently it was scheduled for exec on the 31st and nothing happened.
Nothing happened is another,
But it is an
Right.
unfunded mandate?
I don't know that it's an unfunded mandate. There's a fiscal note that's been requested. I don't know if the fiscal note's currently on file. Whether or not the state will give us money to do this is a question. My concern is if we didn't follow the prescribed changes to our housing plan, that the state would keep the money that the county currently receives and redirect it as they see fit.
because we don't meet the threshold of 50% of the shelter population.
Right.
And that is difficult. So, and the reason that I'm suggesting for you to be concerned as opposed is no good deed goes unpunished. Mm-hmm. It's well-intended bill, but it's so prescriptive that it creates a very difficult way to manage it.
Right, it's better to work with Representative Douglas is one of the sponsors of this bill. It'd be better to work with her on how to make it a palatable bill than oppose.
So concern rather than oppose? Because I don't support it the way it's been portrayed.
But we need to get that out there.
Okay.
I'm comfortable with concern based on what you've described, so we can maybe try to have input on tweaking it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next bill is House Bill 2673, and this is related to exceptions on infill field material development under the State Environmental Policy Act, SEPA. This bill makes infill development in cities and counties planning under the Growth Management Act an automatic categorically exempt under the State Environmental Policy Act rather than a policy that cities and counties can choose to adopt. Changes the standards for what constitute infill development to include development in areas where populations are roughly equal to projections in the local government's comprehensive plan and development regulations rather than limiting in those areas where it is less than such projections. The gist of this bill eliminates going through the process of the SEPA process and is categorically excluded if they qualified as an infill development on those areas listed. My suggestion is to support that.
The fill material is in parentheses?
That's how the bill is, but I think it's infill development.
But that's a completely different. Infill development is just creating density where there's already, well...
Yeah, that's not, sorry. The title does not include the parentheses. It's just infill material. The infill development, no infill material. Sorry about that.
All of these are really complex, and I tend to want to stay neutral if I don't understand them. This one I'm thinking about, like if you think of the Green Cove situation, that might be considered infill developments within it's within Olympia's urban boundary, but there's like a trash dump there and all these toxic materials. I don't know the merits, I'm not commenting on that, but I'm just saying it's an example of where I certainly wouldn't want it not to have to go through environmental review just because it happens to be within an urban area. There can be toxic, there's all sorts of in downtown Olympia, there's been all kinds of examples of really toxic materials that have warranted cleanup before we authorize a project. So this suggests to me that they would be able to not go through that process, and that's concerning potentially in certain situations. So again, complex bill. If I don't understand it, I'm going to vote neutral on that.
Do you have a perspective on this, Gary?
I'm fine with neutral.
Okay, neutral it is.
I think it's just trying to meet the kind of the stated intent of the Growth Management Act on population densities, isn't it?
Trying to encourage. Yeah, I mean,
it's encourage the
Right.
infill.
that's why I mean neutral's good.
I'm okay with it.
Because there's,
Yeah.
I understand could be a positive benefit to it.
House Bill 2979, and this is also part of the WASOFA requires each nonprofit health carriers to annually report the carrier surplus amounts to the Office of Insurance Commissioner for determination of whether the carrier surplus is excessive. And that is, I believe, an important bill. It requires carriers with a surplus greater than 400% of the carrier's risk-based capital requirements to pay 3% of the excessive surplus to the OIC. And that is the
the Office of
the Insurance Commission. Yeah, thank you. So in gist, it really, this bill, what it does is put some restrictions on individual carriers, healthcare carriers that will have an excessive surplus, depending on their fees, to pay back 3%.
This is 2679.
This is 2679, yes, sir.
And WASOFA was supported?
Yeah. You must suggest to support this bill. House Bill 2687. This is related to planning for affordable housing under the Growth Management Act. Requires counties and cities to plan for single-family residences such as single-family detached dwellings, duplexes, triplexes, and townhomes in the mandatory housing element of the comprehensive plan under the Growth Management Act. Requires a county-wide planning policy to provide for how the county and its cities will meet the existing and projected housing needs of all economic segments of the community. If the county and city do not plan for each housing type in the mandatory housing element of the comprehensive plan. Requires countywide policies to be updated no later than 14 months when this law becomes implemented.
Is that like for ADUs?
I think reflects for single-family units, not necessarily ADUs.
No ADU investment?
No, not on this one. And I think what it does allows for multifamily to be placed on the rural areas as well, and that's what this bill does.
So a duplex or something outside the UGA.
Yeah. And my suggestion is for you to support that.
Okay.
I'm neutral on that. I'd have to look at that more carefully myself.
Okay, so
I'm good with supporting it myself. I just think we do need to We need to do something about housing.
The rule, yeah, I support it.
So it's a 2-1. House Bill 2722, related to recycled content requirements, establishes minimum post-consumer recycle content requirement for plastic containers in certain beverages sold, offered for sale, or distributed in Washington. Requires beverage manufacturers to annually report the type of and amount of virgin plastic and post-consumer recycled plastic used for plastic beverages containers containing certain beverages sold, offered for sale, and distributed in Washington. Establishes civil penalties for beverage manufacturers who fail to meet minimum post-consumer recycled content requirements. Complex bill, I suggest it be neutral.
I support. So I'll make that.
You support the bill? Or?
Yes, I support the bill.
Okay. And it puts,
I'd go
more work for the county.
Yeah, I'd make it go neutral myself.
Yeah,
so
I'm
you
okay
have support from Commissioner Messer?
Support, and I stay neutral until I figure out what it would cost the county in reporting and staff time. Well intended, I got to give them that.
House Bill 2786 creates the Opioid Epidemic Response Advisory Council, requires the Attorney General to appoint members to the council, requires the AG, Attorney General, to convene the council to make recommendations to the legislature on the distribution and use of monies received as a result of litigation against opioid manufacturer and distribution. My recommendation is to support this bill, because this is just setting the stage as a potential litigation that we already are part of that. Senate Bill 6364 authorizes local governments to implement a tier fee structure on the impact fee schedules for single-family homes based on the square footage per bedroom and housing units. That is what I think what you were looking for, Commissioner Edwards, to have a tier schedule on those impact fees for depending on single-family homes, depending on the square footage.
Yep.
My suggestion is to support it.
Yeah.
Affordable single family.
That's the ADU?
No.
No?
Yeah,
oh, the one we just talked about.
It's
almost
not ADU, but it could be encouraging smaller units.
Well, what it does is right now we have a single impact fee for a single family home.
For everything.
So what this bill does is has a tiered approach, meaning if a home that is only 1,200 square feet will pay less of an impact fee than a home that is 3,500 square feet. That is the purpose of this bill.
Okay. Right now, they're all paying the same.
Yeah.
Incentivizing small and more affordable. Okay. Yep, I support that.
Senate Bill 6442. I didn't mean to have this on your agenda, sorry. That's more concerning private detention facilities. Please scratch that. So next is Senate Bill, that will be page 7.
Dang it, Ramiro, I thought you were going to give me an easy one. Completely oppose private detention facilities. Give me an easy one, a softball, a layup here.
When I read it, that was not an easy one.
Being directed in Washington.
Yeah, and it was more of the county really wouldn't have an option, no, not applicable. Senate Bill 6475, this creates an identification assistant to support pilot programs at the Department of Commerce, directs the program to assist in the collection of documentation and the procurement of valid identification for individuals experiencing homelessness. requires the Commerce to evaluate the program and to report the legislature governed by November 1st, 2021. So what it does is directs the Department of Commerce to develop a program as to how individuals experiencing homelessness can be provided an ID. My suggestion is to support that, because it's always good just to see what this group can do.
I'm good.
That directs Commerce to do it. Commerce to come up with that program.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Senate Bill 6519 establishes a review process with the Department of Archaeology and Historic Preservation and interested federal recognized tribes to determine potential impacts to archaeological and cultural sites for any project funded by the state revenue that involves groundbreaking activities, requires meaningful consultation with interested federally recognized tribes before allocation of state revenues for any project that involves groundbreaking activities. Under the federal grants, we already have to go through an archaeological process. This bill expands that to any state-funded projects to have through archaeological review. My suggestion is for you to remain neutral on that. Senate Bill 6536 requires counties planning under the Growth Management Act and cities with a population more than 15,000 or more within such counties to provide for the development of duplex, triplex, quadruplex. So this is similar to what the bill that we just revisited. That's a companion bill. So sorry, you're ready to take action on that. Senate Bill 6544. This allows consideration of innovative zoning techniques and other measures to encourage the success of agricultural economy regardless of urban growth area boundaries. Removes a provision requiring non-agricultural accessory uses and activities to be located within areas already developed for buildings and residential uses on agricultural land. Adds measures related to permitting efficiencies that counties and cities may consider to encourage agricultural businesses. Authorizes the Department of Commerce to provide financial assistance to jurisdictions regarding measures encouraging the success of agriculture on agricultural lands. What it does, it expands the definition, I believe, of agricultural lands, even on those areas they have already defined as an urban areas, more of a cluster agricultural uses. My suggestion is for you to remain neutral on that.
I'm good with that.
And last but not least, 6572. This is related to code enforcement violations. And this bill is pretty simple, but significant enough that I recommend to oppose. What it does is no violations will be proceed on an anonymous basis. Right now, we receive a lot of complaints from individuals that like to remain anonymous when they provide those concerns about code violations. This bill, what it does is eliminates any county or jurisdiction to pursue any investigations related to those complaints that have been given by an anonymous individual. So that is problematic from my point of view. It removes the ability for anybody who doesn't like to reveal the source of their complaint. So I suggest for you to oppose that bill.
And that's the thrust of it, is taking away the no investigation for an anonymous complaint. That's the major component.
So what it does is before any violations of an ordinance is issued, the name of any complaint must be made available to the person receiving the notice of violation. If a neighbor, I mean, that can create a very difficult environment.
Yeah.
I support your opposing. Are there any bills related to, this is wild card, I don't know if you know, but I'd be curious if there's any bills related to regenerative agriculture?
before you answer that, can I go back to what we were just talking about? The due process, and that is, I was concerned that it would establish some type of process where it would take away our discretion on working with people with certain code violations. That would be more prescriptive, and we would say, well, sorry, we don't have any discretion. The state says, and we're going to ding you. But that's what I want to make sure that doesn't ever happen.
Okay.
Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
So regenerative
Agriculture. I can look. If you
I'll
come,
do some
I guess what
research.
I'm saying is, if you come across something like that, you could just bring it to our attention, because
I haven't.
I think there is something out there.
I haven't been focusing on agricultural. This just came up because it was a land
since
use.
this agricultural bill came.
There's a land use, but I'll certainly keep an eye on that. That's all I have on my report.
That's it? Okay.
Good.
Briefing, public hearing, decisions pending. We already gone through those.
Yeah.
Water Conservancy Board.
Yeah. Give me a second to pull this away, and then I'll.
Transition.
So as a matter of history, back in, and this is already included in your packet, I just want to brief you. Back in August 1999, the Board of County Commissioners passed a resolution with the intent to create a Water Conservancy Board. That requires to have a public hearing in terms of creating that board. The board then held a public hearing in October 4, 1999. The Board of County Commissioners created the Water Conservancy Board, which included 3 members. Fast forward to 2002, the board also passed a new resolution back in May 2020, increasing the membership from 3 to 5. This is already included in this packet, by the way. So one of the objectives of the Water Conservancy Board, the Water Board shall expedite the administrative process for voluntary water right transfers among water rights holders within Thurston County pursuant RCW 9080-173-153 of the Washington Administrative Code. Upon adoption of as otherwise provided by law, such actions shall convey greater operational control to local water managers and water right holders. The second objective for the Water Conservancy Board was to voluntary water rights transfers between water users can reallocate water use in a manner that will result in more efficient management of water resources. It can reduce water shortage, save capital outlays, and reduce development costs, and it will provide an incentive for investment in water conservative efforts by water right holders. Fast forward to last year, we started having an indication emails from Mr. Jerry Luthane. He is the only surviving member of the Water Conservancy Board. This board has been inactive for, from his perspective, for now 3-4 years. We have not received any applications for any members that would like to participate on this board. He has desperately has sent emails for the commissions to, and I say desperately because he just doesn't want to be responsible for the $6,800 that is in that account.
The last man standing.
And so he is encouraging the Board of County Commissioners to consider dismantling this board. We have touched base with your prosecutor and attorney. You do have the authority to dismantle this board. Although, as you know, as I mentioned to you, it's been inactive for quite some time. There is any new members. At least you see the applications that we receive, and even on the active boards, it's difficult to maintain those board members. And Elizabeth suggested that you do have the authority, and it's up to you if you like to first, dissolve the board, and secondly, it's up to you if you decide to do that, whether you like to hold a public hearing. You have the option just to take an action, dissolve and dismantle this board. So I just want to bring this to your attention. I think is at this point, when we received the initial request, I believe last year, we wanted to see if we see any applicants. We have not received anything. And so he has come back again, and as he stated, he doesn't know what to do with the $6,800 because he perceives a personal liability to that.
Go ahead.
So if we did dissolve that, any of the concerns that are in place that this board was originally created, would they be kind of overseen by the stormwater management folks or the Hearst decision or what, there must have been a reason that this was put in place. Yeah. And then could we take that money and put it in stormwater?
Commissioner Mesnick has probably history of that.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Josh and I both served on the Water Conservancy Board. Oh. It was created to basically allow for a water transfer, right? Water rights transfers had a backlog at Ecology. It was taking forever for people to get.
And they still do it.
And so what they did is they created, it said you can't authorize a new right. But in terms of these transfers from one point of, timing or point of withdrawal or season or use, all the other parameters, if it's an application that doesn't involve a new water right, we're going to let citizen councils get set up and basically get trained how to be to do the review that Ecology does, and then we process them. We send them to Ecology, and they usually, they work with us, but they rubber stamp what we do, and it helped. It was to help a backlog of water rights transfers that was impeding farmers and other landowners. So it was something to try to be flexible, but I think they're more popular in other parts of the state than here. And when you said there haven't been applicants for the board, but have there been applications by folks that want to do a water rights transfer?
Based on the perspective, has been enacted, meaning that perhaps they have not received any applications related.
Yeah, because the time I was on the board, there was a whole, right before I got on in 2010. Just before that, there was this huge number of I forget the name of the McAllister Springs or whatever, and so there was a whole bunch of activity, and then that was kind of coming down, but we still had steady work. And by the time I left the board around 2014, we'd kind of done all of our, and we didn't have any work, and we were kind of how do we reach out to people and tell them we're here and available? We're trying to make work for ourselves because we were trained and meeting every month, and we're ready to do stuff to help people. But I'm not sure what the history's been since 14. But if there are no citizens, so the way I look at this is if there's no citizens needing the services of this board in the form of no applications for transfers, then there's no reason to have this board.
Yeah. That is my understanding. There is not really a workload, so there's not a sense of urgency, at least from his perspective, to have that. But yeah.
How long were you on the board?
I was on it. I fulfilled the 3.5 years. They're 6-year terms, but I took over a partial term and finished it out.
Very interesting.
I guess now, on occasion, I always hear about water rights being sold to a transfer, to a developer or something that's doing it. Maybe it's a mitigation issue or something. Did you guys get involved in anything like that?
Nope.
And now there's a move afoot by Eastern financial groups or something to be buying water rights, to be banking them.
Stuff we did was like, an example was like down at the valley, they had water, they had a well, and they had a water right, but your water right is very prescriptive about, you can use it this time of year, this many gallons for this purpose, and they wanted to, they were going to start a nursery, like, pilot project, so they needed sort of the authority to use the water for this other purpose in this other place on the property, and they have to go through a project. So we were doing stuff like that. It was really helping property owners clean up antiquated pieces of their water right.
But I believe if a property owner wants to exercise a water transfer right, they can go directly to ecology.
Yeah, they do.
So they do have that option.
Well, based on what you said and what you offered, and what Mr. Luthen has offered, you ready for a decision? Thumbs up or down? I say let's dissolve it.
Is there anything else that you need?
I say dissolve it.
Research, certainly.
Where would the money go?
It has to come to the county.
I know, but then what would we do with it? Would it go in the general fund?
But it go in as a dedicated fund itself into the WCB?
I don't know, and that's something that we need to research with Elizabeth as to the purpose and intent of the $6,800. Obviously, the county will take the responsibility of the money along with the strings attached that perhaps may or may not have those dollars. So that is the action, the result of the action that you may consider by dissolving this board.
I would like to dissolve it, dispense with a public hearing.
Yeah.
And I want Jerry to sleep well at night now. Yeah. Take that money, but if we can, divert it to storm water.
I just thought water related.
Something.
Clean water.
So, okay, let's see if I understand your direction is to go ahead and dissolve the district via a public hearing, holding a public hearing prior to that action. No public hearing?
No public hearing.
Why bother? Dispense with it.
Okay. So we'll have
as long as we do it legally.
Yeah,
whatever we do, we want to do it legally.
Our attorney will be on top of that.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll not provide the legal perspective for you. So we'll prepare a resolution for you. And thank you to Katie. She has been working on this for a while.
Thank you. Thank you, Katie.
Jerry, he's been very consistent.
Bless his heart.
Jerry's been on, Josh and I served with Jerry. He's been on there forever.
20 years.
An expert and, so.
Wow. Need anything further? You got that? We're done?
No, we'll bring a resolution for you at a later date.
Okay. Tax title properties follow-up.
Yeah, I'd like to follow up on the tax title property. So at the last action that you took, related to the request from the assessors, from the treasurer's office to have a private negotiation on a particular property. Commissioner Edwards highlighted the fact of there is an expenditure related to title search as a very high-level title report. So I'm here to report as to what that process entails. And in fact, yes, the treasurer's office goes through the process of going that title search prior to any property going for foreclosure. And the intent of that title search is to make sure there is not an interest, any other interest in that title before it goes for foreclosure. The foreclosure amount includes the cost associated with the title search. After we don't have any potential interest on the foreclosure, goes into tax title, right? And properties can remain in tax title for a long period of time. So when an F gets to the point of surplus in those properties, the tax title properties, that fee that you authorized to in the private negotiations included the initial investment of the title search. So what it does is, for instance, the property that you authorized to sell was about $700 with all the fees and everything else. Perhaps the title search was done back in 1980s, in the 80s when this property became as part of the tax title, right? So you recover the cost, perhaps 20 years later, on the cost that you spent 20 years back. So the answer to your question is yes, those fees are included, but the fees are included does not reflect the current cost of the title search.
The value.
But we didn't do a current title search.
So is the title cost that was spent when that property became as part of the tax title. I just want to close the loop on that information that you requested. So unless you have any questions.
I'll quit bugging you.
Any questions? Any further questions?
No, no.
That one's done. Public testimony.
Yes, last week, let me get my notes. You received public testimony related to a proposed a permitting process, a permit application. That's from Mr. Pettit and I think Showbread, the property owner, related to what we call the Faith Harvest helpers. There is a lot of information related to this particular application, and the staff is working with the property owner as well as the property owner's representative to come to a resolution. I'm not here to give you any specifics related to this particular application because it could be, this application could become to you as a quasi-judicial. I have a full page of the different steps that the staff have taken. I have a lot of information that has been shared with the applicant and the representative related to the different areas, but I'd recommend for me not to give you any more additional information other than the staff is working with the applicant and the representative at this point.
Okay.
And I will report that this afternoon.
I had a question. In terms of our policies being consistent on public testimony, we have that, you know, we say don't give public testimony on a pending application, and then Mr. Pettit got up and I think he acknowledged that policy, and I think he kind of, his comments kind of, to my recollection, stayed at the process level, and I think, but then the property owner got up, and and as I was later that night thinking about everything that was said, I think his comments directly.
Yeah.
I mean, he talked about 3-car garage and the permit's been held up for 4 years. That's directly contrary to our.
It's related to that, and again, from my perspective, has many items associated with this particular permit process. There are some violations. The property owner is working on solving those, and also his staff is working to make sure that we follow the code. And for me, I know that I'm speaking with you at a very high level, and is intended for me not to give you any information related to the specifics of this application, because again, you could be facing this on a quasi-judicial, and you need to exercise your decision at that point on a very objective matter based on the information presented to you at that time.
That's why I bring this up, because in general, I agree with Commissioner Edwards. I'd rather hear from everybody about everything anytime, but there's a legal component to why we have that, and so.
And that's what I'm planning to report this afternoon in those terms.
Just a question about how this all works. What you're referring to is kind of like ex parte contact to a degree. Now, when we have heard cases in the past as a quasi-judicial board, specifically one that I removed myself from because I was related to some of the folks that were involved in it, that was between two different entities. I think it was a property a group of property owners, maybe an association, and then a activity involving commercial
Good
activity
dogs.
of
Yeah,
some
it was,
type.
it was
Okay.
shellfish.
So,
Yeah.
so there, I'd be kind of, you could say I was getting, maybe I had a biased opinion and maybe I shouldn't have heard this or that. I shouldn't have been related to him or something, or I shouldn't have heard this or that based on, it prejudiced me one way or the other, to one side or the other. In this particular case, it's just going to be the county against the citizen?
No, sir.
Or against the property owner?
The county is not against any citizen, and the county is not against any applicant.
I know, but I'm trying to figure out then why can't I have all the knowledge? I understand ex parte contact in some situations, but not in all.
Well, because this matter could go to the hearing examiners.
Okay,
And the hearing examiners may issue a decision.
okay,
And that decision could be appealed to you.
okay. But
By an adjacent property owner, for example, or something?
So by the applicant.
By the applicant.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying, he's trying to point out, like, how,
I'm trying to
where do
figure
the
out
two parties come
why
in?
I can't be
Well,
knowledgeable.
this is my recommendation to you. Whether you want to exercise your ex parte communication and get information to whomever, that is within your purview. And then you will have to exercise, when and if gets to quasi-judicial, you will have to exercise your decision whether you like to be part of that decision or not.
So if it does come before this body, we will be educated on the entire issue then.
On the merits of the case.
Yeah, on the merits of the case.
I want to know more. I guess I always want to know more. And I'm going to refer back to an earlier appeal that came before this board. And that was a land use issue and a hearings examiner issue. Had to do with the treehouse.
I remember that.
You remember the treehouse?
Oh, I'll never forget it.
And you cautioned us not to, to be careful about who we communicated with and what. But
And at that point, you wanted to decide which was appropriate. And I believe you went with your attorney to visit the site to have a perspective with no property owner or applicant.
But here's the deal. I figure that I am here to represent the citizen. I'm not so much here to represent the government. The government is not my ally generally, so I'm here to represent I'm elected by citizens to represent them in dealing with the government. So I have a different point of view, maybe.
Commissioner, with all due respect, my comment is not whether how you see the representation of the position that you hold. That's not my point.
Well, no, I know that. I'm just stating that's where my point is.
My point is, as I stated to you, and one of my main objectives is to protect the integrity of the commission. Okay. And I'm only providing suggestions. I am not in the position to dictate what you can or you cannot do.
I know, but I remember that particular treehouse hearing. You did caution about setting precedent and different things.
And what you did is, you heard the merits of the case when you were exercising your quasi-judicial.
Right. Yeah.
And that's how you exercise your quasi-judicial function, because you heard the merits of the case from one side and the other, and then you weigh on your decision.
So you can go out and gather all the information. I know you know this, but you can gather all the information you want, read, talk, interview, whatever. But then when it comes, if it should come to this board, you have to say goodbye, and you can't advocate for anybody. Well, even though you are the government, you cannot advocate for the citizen.
I guess I disagree with that, and here's why. Because if who would ask that I would be disqualified from sitting on the board? I mean, I want all the information from both sides that I can possibly get.
The citizen, so if, let's say, an adjacent landowner appealed the decision because something that these folks were doing was affecting their property or something, then but you've, in the course of the process, have had multiple interviews and gone down and checked out the property, and you've gotten basically one side of the story. Now you're sitting here as a judge, and the other side might say, you've You're not sitting there as an impartial. You've already gathered a ton of information relevant to this case prior to sitting up here. So you're going to be in. My presentation of the case and the merits isn't going to be even-handed one and against the other, because you're bringing in a whole host, whether it's a family relationship, a whole host of investigation and research you've done. You know, the judges always tell the jurors, do not open the newspaper, do not answer the phone, do not go to the site and try to figure out where the accident happened, etc. You're supposed to be judging solely on, in a judicial proceeding, solely on the information presented at the judicial proceeding. If you've got too much from prior to that, or for whatever other reason, personal, you know, ideology or whatever, you can't be fair and impartial. You're asked to recuse yourself. You should do that yourself, or a party can ask that you do that, and then you have to make that decision.
And I agree with you if there's two separate parties, but if there's just the party and the government, then I'm wondering how come I can't know as much as I possibly can. So are you telling me there's going to be a third? Is there a third party getting into this?
There's always going to be a third party. There's always the possibility of a third party.
Oh, there is. Like from another citizen?
There is always could be somebody, anybody can challenge a decision of the hearing examiners. It doesn't have to be the applicant, doesn't have to be the county. Because the county usually doesn't challenge the hearing examiner's decision. It's either the applicant or a neighbor.
They could, though. I mean, like a prosecutor, for example, representing the people of the state of Washington, if they don't like what the judge does, they can take it up to an appeal. Their client is the people, and they feel like, and you know, I would guess that we would have the right, if we felt inappropriate. I'm sure you're right that it almost never happens, but in theory, you could say, what the hearing examiner just ruled is detrimental to the people of this county, and we think that that's a decision.
Or to maybe an adjoining property owner.
For an example, who appealed the cell tower?
Who appealed it? A citizen group.
Not associated with the permit.
Yeah. Right.
Excellent examples. And when it does come down on appeal, then we get all the facts, all the pertinent cases.
At what point might
we're deciding on just the facts?
Might we hear something so it can just go on and ever, like forever? The cell tower went on. I think it's still going on, and it was 5 years so far.
Yeah, I think.
I hope we'll come to some conclusion.
Well, I don't know. I think it's up in Superior Court, I believe, for decision.
It's up in the Supreme Court now.
The Supreme Court. Okay, so there you go.
It's one of the peculiarities of this job.
Look at this thing. So
we wear different hats.
Who is processing that appeal on the cell tower? It's citizens who have no stake on the permitting process.
They don't have any standing on anything.
So.
Anything more on the public testimony?
No, just follow up on Ms. Davis. She also testified at the Board of Health, and it's related to the jungle site and the water quality on the Water Creek, I believe. So you heard some perspective from...
And we'll hear something about that on the 26th, I think, is what you said.
Yeah. Kelly Murno has already reached out to her as in contact. Also, as you heard from Shelley, the department has offered to do some water testing just to make sure some of her concerns are validated or not. And as soon as we get some additional information, we'll get to you. So I will report on that as well this afternoon.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I didn't mean to cut you off. You're all done with the...
No, I guess so.
Okay.
I just hope we can come to a conclusion at some point.
I have something regarding public testimony and a commissioner item lumped into one, and that is the Mr. Ron Percival communication he's had with the commission regarding his on-site septic and the fees. And that's part of the same 26th of February. And thank you for the letter, copy of the letter that was sent out, that you sent out, very nice. And I had a conversation with him yesterday, the day before, and yesterday, and I invited him, not only reminded him of the 26th at 2 o'clock for our briefing on that topic, but that he's always open. He wouldn't be expected. I told him, you're not afforded the opportunity at a briefing to speak your mind, but I invited him to come to any BoCC meeting and make public comment. 3 minutes. He can come anytime, as many times as he wants, do those public comment if he wanted to avail himself to it. So he knows about the 26th, He knows about public comment, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to go visit his site. He wants to show me his engineered system and such, and so that's going to happen.
I guess maybe just a follow-up on that. We get quite a bit of public comment from Mr. Ballard on a similar type complaint that he talks about Tanglewild not contributing to a water quality issue anymore, but yet still being charged for a fee that he doesn't feel is justified, I guess is the best way I put it. Is this like in a similar, are we talking about similar type issues?
He thinks he's paying too much and other people aren't paying anything at all.
No, this is different. Mr. Ballard, I believe we addressed his questions on concerns last year, but I can revisit the letter that we submitted.
His is on the shellfish, the Henderson Shellfish Protection District.
Because it's a special district.
This is another way that folks get the operational requirement,
which is early in 2018, I believe, we answered that
this has nothing to do with that.
No, it's a certificate of compliance.
This gentleman lives down by Offutt Lake.
Okay, so it's a system that might be very well working, but we just keep charging him and charging him. Is that what's going on?
What I understood is when that system came in, it was kind of a new system, and they worked with county staff to come up with the permitting for it. And one of the conditions of the permit that was negotiated was that there'd be a kind of an annual inspection or certificate filed for a certain period of time. And so he's saying at this point, you know, as Art has presented, it's 28% of our county that has to do an operational certificate for one reason or another. Either they're in a protect shellfish district or they've got a complex system, et cetera. So I think his beef is kind of, why am I in the 28% when my system's working well, it's a good system, and 72% of the county doesn't have to pay or file anything. He just doesn't sort of see the disparity.
They're not paying it. Many aren't paying anything at all.
But he's paying a bunch.
But he's paying $150 a year, he said, to have it inspected and certified, and then every 2 years, $500 to have it pumped. And many other people, he said, now my system, he says, is functioning perfectly. I'm not adding detrimentally to the environment, whereas other folks around the county are, and they're not paying a penny.
But it's a little bit different because this is a condition of the permit.
I get that, yeah.
That was from the beginning. It was like,
do we have the authority to adjust the conditions of that permit?
No, because it went all the way to the hearing examiners.
Well, we might have to rehear it. You better be careful going down looking at it.
I don't think you have, with all due respect, the ability to just rehear an issue that it was dealt by the hearing examiners way back then.
Tell me what happens if this gentleman quits paying.
It will be...
Do we kick him out of the house and make him homeless?
No, it will be a lien on his property.
Title 26.
Yes, that's all the questions I asked.
Wow.
Well, okay. I have to say, I mean, I'm interested. You've piqued my interest now about the fairness of it all. I mean, if he's got a system that is working,
then let's charge everybody in the county the same fee. Then it's equitable.
Let's cut the fees. I mean, I find that most everybody, except some of the meth camps or derelict operations like that, I think most everybody is interested in clean water and clean air.
Yep.
You know, and they want to do the best job they can. And if they can't flush their toilet, they're going to fix it.
Well, we still have a septic policy in place. We just haven't revisited it for a bit and assessed because when we suspended the $10 collection, it was, we don't want to just do it blanketly. Let's look and see where's the issue, where's the problem, what would be an equitable fee to assess, and how would you apply it for the sensitive areas versus anywhere else? And we haven't done that.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the 26th of February, the 2-hour briefing on water quality, that may be the beginning of that conversation for the board.
That seems like a short period of time, though, for this conversation, but we have to start somewhere.
On this particular issue that this gentleman has brought forward, is that going to be discussed? Would we be discussing that on the 26th? I'm just kind of curious what kind of a system it is, if it makes sense. I mean,
Come on down, look at it. Different,
can't
separate
go
time,
with you,
separate
but-
time than me.
Well, once you go look at it, maybe you can give us a commissioner's update at one of our meetings, what you found out.
Yeah, how about if I share with Robin, the background related to the system
Okay.
information?
And with me prior to my visit.
The thrust of it, just to be accurate, I mean, I'm really anxious to meet Mr. Percival, but the thrust of his letter is not that, scrap my fee, this is a waste of time. It's like, why aren't other people having to do the thing that I'm having to do?
Yeah.
He just wants to kind of understand the system. Understandably, it's pretty complicated. And, how you described it, because we've targeted certain programs in certain places.
I'm really concerned now because I had a individual, and it was the fellow that Jason Hearn was kind of promoting.
Yeah.
He was coming with a
That
new
scientist guy.
technology and a scientist and going to solve all the septic problems in the world. And you think about all the sledge and how all that stuff is dumped on the land and detrimental and all that. But I was told
Gasification.
that you couldn't do that system because it wasn't certified by the State Department of Health
Or ecology or something, yeah.
Yes, but it sounds like somebody was able to put a system in place to get around a particular problem. I mean, I want, like drain fields, I'm not too worried about the septic tank as long as it's got a pump in it. And I want the drain field as far from the water as we can possibly get it, in a proper drain field situation. That's my concern.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess we've
Do you have
already
any
done it.
commissioner items before we run?
You got
23 seconds? No, I'm all right.
You all right? You all right?
I'm done.
All right, thank you all. We're done with this meeting.
See you at 2.
See you at 2 o'clock or 1:50.
Yeah, okay.